Hey guys, this is Rusty again from Collector Auctions, and I am live right now in front of the Heroes Con down here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm getting ready to go in. We're a little early because I've got 3-day pass. We're getting ready to, I think they'll open the doors a half hour early for 3-day passes, so I'm looking forward to getting in line. Going to be in line a lot today. I've got some big name artists that I want to get autographs from. At some point we'll be doing some comic book hunting. We'll get to that too, but right now it's going to be a day of standing in line, and I will do some shooting throughout the show, but I will probably come back for a recap later tonight and just show you what I got today and give you a recap of day one. So stay tuned and enjoy the footage from today, okay? Take care. Hey everybody, this is Rusty. I'm back. We just finished up the first day here at Heroes Con down in Charlotte, North Carolina. Survived day one, got a lot of great autographs and everything, and I hope you just enjoyed some of the footage that I shot during the con. And I apologize, I probably could do a much better job showing you some of the stuff going on there, but I gotta tell you, I spent the majority of the day in lines trying to get autographs, trying to wrap that up so then the next 2 days I can do a little bit more autographing, but I'm definitely going to be diving into the comic bins and looking on the walls and trying to find some keys that I'm looking for the PC. So there's definitely some more stuff I want to do, but today was dedicated to getting these autographs done. And so what I want to do right now is I want to go over, show you some of the things that I got and who I got them by, and talk about some of the stuff that you're not going to see today, but in future months you're going to see as well. So let's just start off right off the bat right here. And first person that my wife and I ended up going to see today was Jim Steranko. Now, of course, everybody knows him, legendary Marvel artist, and he wasn't cheap. It was $50 an autograph, so I kind of cut back that list a little bit. But one of the things I'd been wanting from him was almost every artist does prints, and I love getting prints signed, and so I can put them up on the wall and change them out whenever I want to. But at the last show that I saw him at, he didn't have this particular one available, and it's one of my favorite Captain America issues, one of my favorite Jim Sterankos. But it is, you'll recognize Captain America 111, classic cover here. I own this issue, but I've got it in at CGC right now. But I wanted to get this one, a print signed by him, so I can always keep it up in the house and everything. So he had a print of this. If you can see, I'll zoom in just a little bit here. You can definitely tell it's been recolored and everything, but just absolutely gorgeous. So I got this signed, and the other item I got signed was the actual comic, issue number 113. And if you watched one of my previous videos where I did an unboxing from Heritage, you'll know that I picked up that. It's a high-grade issue. I contemplated whether I wanted to get that book signed or just get it graded, and in the end, knowing that I could facilitate getting it signed and witnessed there at the show, and then submitting right there to CGC they weren't there, but their facilitators were. Knowing that I could do that and get a CGC yellow label out of that, and hopefully it's going to end up as high grade as I think it's going to be. I'm hoping for at least a 9.4. That book was super tight. I'm really hoping for it. If it falls below a 9, I'm going to be really disappointed, because I own an 8.5 in that, and this book was so much nicer than that. But it was kind of fun getting him to sign this, because as you'll see when I show you some of the other books here, you'll know I did the signing windows on the comic bags, and I used a lot of painter's tape. I went through a lot of painter's tape, and I had little arrows showing where I'd like it signed, and of course I did that on his book as well. And he kind of laughed and he said, one arrow would have been enough, but I ended up having like 9 arrows around. And he said, you really wanted to make your point, didn't you? And I said, hey, wait a minute, I did my research. I know where you've signed on this book before. So he laughed about that. And of course, when you go see Jim Steranko, you got to listen to the great stories and everything. So I stood there with the person in front of me in line. They were getting that classic Jim Steranko Hulk annual, the classic cover signed. And Steranko went into the whole story of how fast he did that story and how he got it in there, and the trials and tribulations of it. He cut himself shaving, trying to drive it in the morning, and he comes in. Nobody should have been in the office, but he was talking about how he had a bloody t-shirt, or it was an expensive Italian shirt on, white, and he had been shaving in the car, and car hit him, bumped him, and he cut himself. He was bleeding all over the shirt, but okay, no big deal. He goes into the office. No one should have been there at 7 o'clock in the morning. And what was there? They were doing a UN tour, and it was just a bad situation. But you know what? He delivered that cover in under a day, probably in under 12 to 14 hours. He did that Hulk cover. So it was fun listening to the story there, and then I went up, and of course I got my book signed, and from there I went with the facilitator, The Witness, and we got that book into the system, and it's out of my hands now. It's going off to CGC, so hopefully, and I ended up fast tracking that order too, so hopefully it'll be back in my hands in the next few months actually. So that was Jim Steranko. That was a great way to start off the day, and from there we ended up going to the John Romita Jr. line, and he actually wasn't going to be there until noon today. Well, my wife, being the smart person she is, she ended up, as soon as we were done with Jim Steranko, she's like, okay, I'm going to go get in line. And I'm like, where are you going? It didn't even dawn on me how late it had gotten already. Show had opened at 10. This was already 11:30 at this point. But she got in line. We weren't too far back. But there it ended up being a little bit more complicated because I definitely had a bunch of books I'd like to get signed, but I also wanted to get some books signed by other artists and then possibly have that book sent to CGC to get graded. And the example I will end up going over is the Iron Man 128, Demon in a Bottle. CGC is doing a private signing with Bob Layton, and I wanted the facilitator, The Witness, to witness the John Romita Jr. signing, take the book, and get it to CGC so they can get Bob Layton as well. And it took some doing, but the group that handled this signing, actually, there's a lot of these groups, a lot of these witnesses that are there, companies that work for CGC. They ended up doing a great job of getting this taken care of. So anyway, there's a book. So there's one book that I won't see for a while because that will have to go, and they'll get Bob Layton to get that signed. But I also did, I wanted to get his new Spider-Man book and some other books done by Scott Hanna as well. But I was only going to want to get one of those signed by Scott Hanna and John Romita Jr. and then have that CGC. And I did the Spider-Man #1, the brand new series that's just out. So I did that, and let me show you some of the books that I did not get CGC'd, but I definitely got double signed. And the first here is Spider-Man #1, and I apologize for the tape. I'm not taking these books out of the bag at this point, and it's going to be almost impossible for you to see this. I'm going to zoom in hopefully a little bit, and I'll show you. I don't know. I should have said something quicker, but he signed in dark blue on black. I mean, it makes no sense in the world. But this is Spider-Man #1, the Scotty Young cover, and you can see up here a little bit right here. I got Scotty Young to sign this a couple weeks ago. If you watch my video from a few episodes ago, you know I went to a Scotty Young signing and I got this book signed. Well, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to move the book. Let's see if I can get some light. Okay, you can see a reflection. It's awful. But it's signed. There's the JR for Romita Jr. And then I got Scott Hanna's a little bit better. His blue is at least a little bit brighter. But you can see Scott Hanna there on the bottom. But this is a PC book, so I mean, I'm not going to complain too much. Well, I guess I'll complain a little bit. But I also got Devil's Ring #1. This is the retail incentive variant. And I'll zoom in here. You can see both signatures are right there. And I didn't send these to CGC because even at this point in the day, the money involved to do all this was just skyrocketing quickly. And as much as I would have loved to get these books sent off to CGC, get them graded, have them, there's always the option of later on taking these books and sending them to CBCS and doing it that way. And I just, I can't afford everything at the same time. So I decided, I pulled back. In the end, I'm only going to send 3 books to CGC for grading. One of those already has Scott Hanna on it. The other one was a copy of, it's a facsimile edition of Spider-Man 238. And I got that signed by Romita Jr. And he was the only one on that book. But so the other one had Scott Hanna, and then the other one they're going to do is Iron Man 128. They're sending that, of course, I just said to CGC. But let me show you the last one that they did for me. It's, I think this is a retail incentive variant as well. This is patch #1. And you can see where I have the windows to sign. And I actually had Scott Hanna down here. And then up here is Romita Jr. So And he told a really neat story about this bar that he's showing here. Apparently, he has used this bar multiple times in the comics. And I looked at him, I said, wait a minute, was this the bar that they had the big Colossus Juggernaut fight back in the X-Men? He said, yeah, it's the same bar. So that was kind of a neat little story he was talking about. All right, let's see where I'm going to go from here. Well, I'll just pick up the next pile. So David Peterson from Mouse Guard was there, and I didn't have anything of his books per se, but I did pick up, I went through the collection, recent comics, and I realized I've got most of the Usagi Yojimbo reprints. It's a Lone Goat and Kid series. It's about 6 issues they're reprinting, but David Peterson did the covers to all these. And I couldn't find issue 1, but I've got issues 2 through 6. 6, I think, just came out yesterday. So let me show you real quick. I'll just run through the covers. This is the one that came out yesterday, number 6. And you can see his signature right down here. And what was nice about that is he doesn't charge for autographs. You know, he sells his books and sketches and things like that, and he wasn't charging for autographs. And that's pretty rare these days. This one you can really see down there at the bottom. But if you've watched any of my videos at all, you know I'm a huge Usagi Yojimbo fan, and I love David Peterson's work. I don't have a lot of his books or anything, but I really like his work, and I love these covers. So, you know, these will be saved, and hopefully I'll get a chance to see Stan Sakai again someday. All right, next up, got 2 issues of John Sable Freelance from Mike Grell. This is issue number 1. Of course, this is back in the early 80s, I think at 82. But you can see his signature right there in the middle. And then I got issue number, I believe this is number 11. This is Maggie the Cat. This is, I guess, her first appearance. And you see the signature up here as well. So that was real nice. I hadn't seen Mike Grell in probably, I think it's been about 30 years since I've seen him, because I know I've got him in my big Marvel book, and he's on the page where I've got a lot of the original page I was working on that book. It was signed by a lot of these great 70s and 80s artists, Marvel artists, and he's on that page, so I know that about the time frame. So we got to talk 93, 94 is about when I got those signed. Okay. All right, let's do this one. So I've gotten Ron Frenz before on several things, including a bunch of original artwork. But so I didn't really have a lot I wanted to get him on, but what I had available to me that had been just recently pressed, I had considered sending out, was several Spider-Man books, and I was looking for the best one, something that had a little bit of significance, but I wanted 258. But the issue that I had that I was prepping had some damages to it, and who knows, maybe someday I want to get it graded with the signature. I don't know. But I knew it wasn't going to grade high enough with the way I would want. So this issue 259, though, is really nice. And I just, like I said, recently just finished grading that. And you can see his signature right here. And then the other thing I got Ron Frenz to sign was I've got a lot of these production transparencies. They really are more just like prints, but I've been picking these up years ago. Not that expensive or anything, but this is a beautiful issue of Thor. I guess it's issue number 416. You got Joe Sinnott. Sinnott? How do you pronounce that? He actually did the inking on here and everything, and just absolutely gorgeous. This homage to Kirby. And if you look real close here at the, at the hammer, take a look there. See how small the hammer is right there? And he told me a quick story about that, and he said that, I'll just hold it here. He said, he was just telling me a story, they kind of got on him for drawing the hammer so small, and he said he was doing it based on Kirby. You know, these are Kirby proportions, and they said, well, that's nice, but basically stop doing that. Make the hammer big. So that was a cute little story from Ron Frenz. All right, let's do the next pile sitting right in front. Now, this was a pretty big name. This was the longest line of the day. This line, it wasn't long. Well, it was a little long, but it shouldn't have taken nearly as long as it took. And it's because this person talks to every person there, and I mean, we're talking 10 to 15 minutes per person. So it takes forever. But who am I talking about? I'm talking about Chris Claremont. I mean, just absolute Marvel legend. And the first thing I got him to sign was my copy of X-Men 94. This is a book I picked up. I want to say I picked this up in the mid-late 80s over at a little Comic-Con over in Roanoke, Virginia. And I'll show you what I liked about it. And I don't know if I got this one in person or I got it, it was already signed. But I know I've met him and got him to sign some things at that con, so it could have been both. But it's signed on the inside. You see Chris Claremont to the side, but who do you see right here? You got Dave Cochran right there. And below that is Bob McLeod. And this I had gotten in more recent years. But here I got Claremont, I've got Cochran on that same book right there. Now this is a book that'll never get graded because I want to see these autographs. So that's pretty special. And then my copy of Classic X-Men #1, same thing goes for this. Who do I have? I've got Dave Cochran right there. And I think I got this one signed in person. This was definitely me at that con. And who else was at that show? There's Art Adams right there. And you can see it's an old signature and everything. Yeah, it has a date, 6/24/89, so this is 1989. So that's an awesome, I guess I need to get John Bolton, I suppose. All right. Now, the rest of the books are in bags, and you'll have to excuse the painter's tape, but this is a book I'm saving for Walt Simonson and Louise Simonson as well. But this is the crossover in the early 80s, Teen Titans, the X-Men. It was an early appearance of Deathstroke. I want to say it might have been his second appearance, maybe third. I mean, we're talking super early appearance there, but just what wonderful artwork. And I had wanted to get this one sent to CGC as well, with Claremont and at least just Walt, if not both Louise too. Louise actually she was the editor on this. And it became, at this point in the day, I was so tired. And the fact is, you had to go bring your own witness from one of these facilitators to witness the signature. And it became just a hassle at that point. So, and the line, I'm going to tell you, the reason I don't have Walt on here right now is their line was phenomenally long. And at this point in the day, I'm toast. I'm going to wait till tomorrow, maybe even Sunday, to try to get this one signed. And I have some other books from Walt as well, but so we'll wait on that and get those. But there's Chris's signature up there at the top. And then I got some X-Men books signed, and I'll talk about that as well. So here's a issue of X-Men #1, the Magneto cover. Actually, I got two of those right there. Right there. And I did the Wolverine cover. And as you can see, I've got spaces for Jim Lee and Scott Williams, and I'll go over that in a second. And then I did the special collector's edition as well. And one of my second favorite Jim Lee X-Men 268. Now, I'll keep this one up for a sec because, as I said, at this point, CGC fees for already with Romita, with Steranko were going, it was getting high quick. And what I opted to do with Chris Claremont was have a witness come in, do the two books that I really wanted for my collection signed. And here's the thing, CGC is doing a private in-house signing with Jim Lee and Scott Williams. And again, this is another case where I want the facilitator to take my book, witness this signature, get it into their hands, and then they get it to CGC where they will finish up the signing. So that's why I've got the window for Jim Lee and then Scott Williams down here. Now, you saw these other books that I obviously didn't send in, And the thing was, it was one of those last minute, which books do I want and how much was it going to cost? Well, it was going to cost, it started costing a lot at this point. Don't even ask me numbers at this point. I don't want to know. But I knew that I had to shut it down. But then you ask, well, why did you get all these books signed by just Claremont? Well, here's the thing. Jim Lee's supposed to be up in Baltimore at the Baltimore Comic Con this October. My plan is I was going to get him to sign some things anyway. I'm still going to get these books signed. If I ever see Scott Williams, I'll add them to him. But these are books I'll just hold on into the PC and save it for CBCS at some point. So that's why these books aren't in somebody else's hands at this point. All right, moving on. All right, so one of the favorite books over the last year has been Stray Dogs. You know, Tony Fleece? I never know how to say that. But Tony and Trish Foistner. Now, Trish Foistner, you heard me talk about, if you watched my last video, one of my last videos where I talked about going to the Scotty Young signing, she was in line behind me to get things signed by Scotty Young. It was really, really just bizarre, but I got to spend about an hour or so with her. And while I was at the store, I also picked up a couple of their exclusive Stray Dog covers and had her sign them there too. And then she was telling me she's, of course, going to be the Heroes Fund was bringing Tony in, but they also reached out to bring her in as well. So they're signing together. And Third Eye Comics in Annapolis, Maryland has done several Trish Foistner signings. Well, I've got a stack here of books that she had already signed, except for one of these. And I wanted to get Tony's autograph on there too. So here's a case where I brought them all down there. And I told Trish, I'll see you in a couple weeks when we're down there. I'll say hi as I'm getting Tony to sign all the books that you've already signed. So let me just go through them real quick. The one book that I did bring that I'd had a copy of, but I didn't have Trish sign it earlier, this was the, again, I'm sorry for the tape, but it is the Creep Show homage. And this is the Dog Days #1. And I'm going to zoom in because they ended up doing black. I don't know. What is it with them doing black on black? But you can kind of see the autographs there. It's pretty low light in here right now, but in regular light, it actually looked pretty good. And I'm just going to run through these real quick, and I'm not going to go into the covers and the homages and everything, but I'll just show you real quick. This is issue #5, and Trish was down here, and there's Tony's up there. This was, I guess, 28 days later. Both of them right in that area. This is one of the ones I picked up at Third Eye Comics, one of their exclusive covers, the Elvira cover. Trish had signed down here, and then Tony, I had him signed somewhere up in here. I kind of made it big so he could do wherever he wanted. And I'll show you the other cover that Third Eye did. This is all issue #1 of Dog Days, Stray Dogs Dog Days. Now, Trish is over here. There's Tony right there. I'll give you this one. Trish signed in red on that one. And then I got several. I did 3. I just brought everything that she had already signed, but I had 3 of the Dracula, the Bram Stoker's Dracula homage here. Trish signed in red. I'm getting light, but she's over here, and then Tony did his in the same spot pretty much in all of those. And this was kind of neat because she done hers right here in black. He did his in silver. That's going to look real nice. Here's the, I guess, the Evil Dead homage. Since she signed over here, I wanted him to sign in this to kind of keep it equal. Although it would have looked really nice right up here too. And same idea with that one as well. I'll go back just a little. There you go. And then my favorite cover, only because it's one of my favorite movies of all time, was John Carpenter's The Thing. And I had 1 copy of this left. The other ones I had already sent in to get graded. I've got 9/8 back on these, but I kept 1 back when I heard they were going to do a signing with her, and I got her right there. I mean, Trish signed right there, and there's Tony right there. So that was from them. All right, let's see. All right, we're almost done. Let me do this real quick. Now, this is a book that you should recognize. This is the hardcover, first edition hardcover to The Dark Knight Returns. Frank Miller, Klaus Janson, and I had wanted to get this book signed several years ago when my wife went to the Baltimore Comic Con to get signed. I couldn't find it. I couldn't lay my fingers on this book. I tore that house up and I still couldn't find it. After the show, I mean, it was still a year after that show, and I finally found it. And I've been holding in a place where I knew exactly where it was until I got a chance to do this again. It was going to be last year. Frank Miller ended up canceling last year, and I'm like, oh, come on. I have never met him, and my wife had, of course, and she got some great things signed by him, but I hadn't met him, so I saved this book, and I was going to wait until October when him and Jansen are going to be there together again, because he's going to be back this year. He promised. We'll see. But you know how things happen. You know, I mean, we just had the passing of George Perez. We had the passing of Tim Sale. We had Neil Adams. I mean, you never know. So I didn't wait. I went ahead and got Klaus to sign, and you can see it down here, right there in white, right there. And he said, I'll leave an area right up here for Frank to sign. And I'm thinking to myself, every Frank Miller autograph I've got is absolutely huge. He'll go over the whole page. So that should be interesting to see what he does. But that came out really nice. Unfortunately, we had Denny O'Neil pass in the last couple years, so I cannot. He was the editor here, and I couldn't add him to the book. So, all right, almost finished. Yeah, I think we're down to it. So the last couple I've got here is we got is it Frank Chow or Cho? I'm not sure, but we've got, this is Savage Avengers #1. This is the only issue from one of those Marvel covers that he did that I could lay my hands on. I couldn't. I mean, I've got a bunch of these from the other issues: Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk. I've got a bunch of these. I swear I couldn't find them fast enough, but getting a Black Widow cover done was fantastic, and you can see his beautiful signature right there. And then he had done the cover to Radiant Black #1, and that's a very well designed cover. You know, that isn't just art, that's design that you're seeing there. And he signed right down here. And he also had a lot of prints. He's got these 12 by 18 prints. Actually, I think they're more like 13 by 19. So they're pretty big, and I'll show you each one individually. He has a bunch of them, but I love the Spider-Man print. I mean, is it me, or does he remind me of Darwin Cook? Just a little too much. I mean, in a good way. Absolutely a great way. But you can see he signed down here at the bottom. And then they had an X-Men print. They had some Captain Americas. Who knows? I may go back and get one of those Captain Americas. This is very reminiscent of the Tales of Suspense stories with Cap and from Jack Kirby. But we've got, he signed down here. But I love this X-Men print. It's too bad that he doesn't have this giant signature, because I obviously would have looked fantastic up there. And then I went back with my wife, and we're always looking for stuff for my daughter, who is a huge Harley Quinn fan. And I'm going to spoil this, but I know that she's not going to watch the video for any time soon, so we'll see. But we ended up getting her this Harley Quinn print, and he said, you should go get Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti as well, because if I'll zoom in on this, you know, these are characters they worked on. You see the palm, and you see their names right there. So he sent me over, and I didn't have anything for them to sign. I had one for Jimmy, a book to sign. I'll show you that in a sec. But so anyway, I ended up getting. They did this for my daughter. You know, for Jessica, there's Michael Cho, there's Amanda Connors, and there's Jimmy Palmiotti. And then the last thing I got from Jimmy was this one comic. This is Lady Rawhide #3. If you don't recognize it, it's a little risque, but it's just a beautiful Adam Hughes cover. And you can see Adam Hughes has already signed it down here. So I had Jimmy signed in this area up there. So anyway, guys, that is a recap for day one. This is my experience there. Again, I apologize for probably the lack of video at the show. By the time I pretty much finished all of these, I had an hour left in the day to kind of take some video around the show and then start going through boxes and comics and stuff like that. And I was toast. I was ready to go. So I'm back at the hotel now. I'm about ready to crash. I'm going to finish editing this video and trying to get this up tonight so you guys can see it before I go back tomorrow, because I'm going to try to do a recap each day. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this, and that's it. Day 1, Heroes Con 2022, and I'll see you for tomorrow's video as well. Guys, take care and have a good night.